Hey guys, what's up? It's Stacking Chairs, a youth ministry podcast all about serving in youth ministry. Whether it be youth group or youth camp, whatever God has you serving in, that's what we're talking about. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Balhamus. I'm joined by my fellow host and good friend,
Kyle Gray. Josh, it is episode 60.
60, yeah.
60. It is crazy to think that we have done this 59 different times. Well, we haven't done it 60 times, but this is 60th.
Yeah.
And technically we haven't done 60 because we did a couple revamp or redo episodes.
No, but I usually number them separately.
Take the win.
Oh, you do?
Well, and Kyle, you've actually
Thank
missed
you.
more episodes than I have, so I think I'm actually
Wow.
closer.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Josh.
I'm not sure what just happened. I've
It's-
never quite seen that on a
Shots
It became a
fired.
competition. It became a competition.
Shots fired. Well, and again, you might not be seeing that, but Josh, where can they watch this?
Yeah,
so
you
they
can always check
see
us
my
out.
awesome reaction.
You can check us out on our Word of Life Fellowship YouTube channel. Check out what's happening around the world, as well as every episode of Stacking Chairs.
Hey, so Josh, as always, during this season, we are in camp.
Yep. So you got to expect some
you
noise.
may hear my radio go off. I've
Yep.
tried to have it at put it at an appropriate level.
Just in case your boss needs to get a hold of you.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
you never know.
You never know.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest for today
There's your
actually
segue.
is my boss,
Yeah.
Rich Andrews. Hey,
yeah.
I don't know if you know this, right?
It's not me.
Yeah.
It's not. Praise
Yeah.
God. But no, so Rich is here today. Rich is our camp speaker this week. Another week of junior camp. This was actually a phenomenal week
Yeah.
of junior camp.
Yeah.
Rich, I don't know if you remember this. There's only been 1 year in the past 9 years that we had 4th of July on a teen week.
That's right.
And it's totally different.
Yes.
The parade that we do,
Yeah.
it's totally different for teens.
Yeah. It honestly, Lynn and I, my wife Lynn, and we're related. We were in the parade. We were just like, this is incredible. Like the whole staff jumped in. We had so many vehicles. The line never ended.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And
That's fun.
it's everything you can imagine, from like a golf cart to like an army truck.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's camp. So
It
it's like,
is.
hey, fire that thing up.
It is.
Yeah, get everything out there.
So here's my little like extra 2 cents.
Yeah.
If you're doing VBS or something over July 4th, do a big deal about July
Yeah,
4th.
I would.
man. Yeah,
I would.
Throw a parade,
parade.
because so many of these kids, they're missing out on that outside.
Yeah.
We actually even do fireworks. Now, I don't recommend all of you to do fireworks.
We do fireworks.
Yeah. I don't recommend all of you to do
that out, edit
fireworks.
that
But
edit it
check
out.
with your city's
Leave it
ordinance. Hey, so Rich is our speaker. And I don't know if you guys know this, but if you check us out for junior camp, which you can watch online, you can stream all of our things.
Yeah.
You'll see at junior camp, not only do we do focus messages for that specific age group, but we also do dramas.
Right.
And that's a really important thing. Actually, Rich, that's something you guys have been doing for years, even before I was here.
Yeah. So it was really the brainchild of a pastor and his wife, the Fergusons.
Yeah.
And that's how when Pastor Dave came, his wife would write a drama
Yeah.
before each of his messages.
Oh.
And so it turned into something that we were just like, hey, we love that.
Yeah.
With that age group, especially.
Yeah.
You got age 6 all the way to 12. Let's do something to break the meeting, into pieces so that we don't lose them. And it has really exploded. Now our own team does it. You guys write them. It's just awesome.
Well, and it's amazing because the reason why we do dramas is because we really want the Word of God to come alive and almost like show up in front of their eyes. And let's be honest, some of you out there, when you do your VBSs, you will do a VBS and you'll go, okay, we got to do the drama to just get the drama done. No, if the drama is setting up your speaker, do it with excellence. Rich, how has that for you as a speaker?
Oh man,
really kind of set you up?
Well, honestly, it takes away a lot of the pressure from trying to add like all of the extra energy and pizzazz. I mean, you still want to bring that as a speaker, but you all of the weight is off of you.
Oh,
You're like, for me personally, I'm constantly referring back to, hey, remember in today's drama, Jules said this to Thomas kind of thing. And for me personally, sometimes, and you know this because we talk about, sometimes the message will be about what the drama was. And sometimes like maybe I'll teach a gap in the drama, which is what I did today. We finished with Moses, saying to Joshua, you're in charge now, you're taking the people into the land. And last week's speaker kind of stayed there and talked about that. Well, I was like, hey, you know what? I think I want to talk about Joshua going into the promised land.
Yeah.
What did that preparation look like and all those things. So
I actually almost spoke on that last night at Campfire.
which is why this morning I texted you and went,
Said,
hey, what was your passage?
So I was going back and forth and I'm like, do I take him into the promised land?
I was literally like in trepidation texting that because I was like, if he texts back Joshua, I have literally 47 minutes to rewrite my entire message.
Yeah, that happened
But
to
in
me.
the Providence, it happened to you?
It just happened to me a couple weeks ago. We were teaching, and I was supposed to be teaching on the gospel changes what you love. And then when someone else was doing changes your priorities, they were hitting, and they almost hit the same passage I hit. And so I actually, fortunately, I texted them a week ahead and I knew. Yeah. But even when I was sitting there, I was like, oh no, that was going to hit the same passage.
That's crazy. That's
it's
crazy.
like watching a fly by.
As a speaker, you just get up and go, hey, God really wants us to get this.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go through it again.
Let me go at it at a different angle.
Double down.
Oh man.
Funny.
Hey, so here's the elephant in the room. All right. We have sometimes, and let's just be honest, we all have times that we disagree with our leadership team.
Sure.
Yep.
And everybody brings something different to the table. You've heard me say this before. If everybody on your leadership team is only saying the same thing, you don't have a good leadership team.
Yeah.
It's okay to clash every once in a while. And it's okay to look at things from different. And guess what? Hey, youth pastor or youth leader or dare I say pastor, you don't always have to have it your way. However, if you're in leadership and if you're in charge, you got to lead your team well. And sometimes it's okay for you to get your way. And so, I have Rich here, and 9 years ago, in a couple months, Rich said, hey, would you come and be the camp director? And that first year I had been in camp for 2015. So I had already been doing camp with wol.is and other camps for 16 years at that point. Yeah. And so, Rich actually did a really good job of saying, hey, I know you know camp, and I know you've been at our camp, but I want to walk you through some distinctives and walk you through as situations come, how we handle this. Because, and let's be honest, there's some of you out there, you're in this position and you think, I now have to prove to my leadership, I know everything that I know. Yeah. And you get that clash point between you and your leader. And so I was sitting in a session that Rich was teaching about how do we follow followers? Because all of us have some type of leadership above us. Right. And so I said, hey, Rich, when you come on the podcast, can you talk us through this whole idea of what does it look like? What is my responsibility in following my leadership? And then what's my response to when my leadership asks us? So today we'll feel a little different, but I think it's some really good meat. Oh yeah. In fact, I would really encourage you guys maybe to sit through this and then to figure out a time that you can you teach through this stuff with your leadership team or listen back through this thing with your leadership team. Send it to your senior pastor. But Rich, talk to us about this whole idea of, well, first of all, where did this come from?
Well, I was actually approached last fall by our camp leadership up in Scroon Lake, New York.
He was on the podcast here before.
Okay, so John was here. Yep. John Buber was here. And John had reached out to me and said, hey, would you mind putting something together about, how do you respond to leadership? I'd been here quite a while. I've worked with a broad span of different types of leaders. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I just began to think about it and pray about it and did some research, landed on this article by a guy named Ken Downer. The article is called Following the Follower, 15 Ways to Lead Better by Following Better. Oh, okay. So go out there, search it. The guy's a former Army colonel, has led people. Yeah. But to Kyle's point, we're all still followers, right? So if I'm trying to lead people, if I'm trying to lead others and I'm not the ultimate decision maker, right? I've got a boss, Kyle and I have a boss. His name's Don Locke. He's just president. He's also your boss, the president of the organization, right? Yep. And so, how do I do that when how do I take what they would like to see accomplished, right? The things that matter to them. Yeah. And also be able to lead the way that I believe God's calling me to lead. Yeah. And so that's kind of where this was all born from. The verse, right? It's okay to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The verse that
we use the Bible sometimes too.
Every once in a while.
The verse that I kind of landed on was in Hebrews 13:17. Obey your leaders and submit to them. Right. And honestly, if you just stop there, that would be enough, right? Sure. But I love the rest of this. For they are keeping watch over your souls as those who will give an account. Right? Let them do this with joy, right? Be the type of follower that is so like understanding of how the authoritative structure works that for your boss, it's actually a joy to lead you.
Yeah.
Right. Let them do it with joy, not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you, to the follower.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm not easy to lead, right. If my response is always aggressive, if I'm always, coming back with something, it's actually a disadvantage to me is what the writer of Hebrews is saying.
Yeah.
And so that's where this was kind of born out of. And basically, I just kind of broke it down, as I was thinking about my career. It's even, 30 years now. It's weird to think about it that way. But how do I handle some of these things? So we'll just jump right in. All right,
let's do it.
So number one, how do I handle unpopular requests? Oof. Right. So you're doing your thing. Maybe it's something to do with your youth group or children's ministry. And all of a sudden somebody walks in and goes, hey, you almost kind of know, right? When they come in, how's it going? You're like, what do you want? Just
what do you think I'm doing wrong?
Well, you guys have been doing this, whatever. It's a program change of some kind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
How do I do that? Or, you get the call from, the head deacon, the finance committee. So I see you got a request in for this. We're going to need you to trim back that spending a little bit. Now you've spent all kinds of time, right? Planning this event, doing this event. You were told the finances were going to be there for that. How do I respond to an unpopular request, right? Because how I respond to those requests, right, from leadership is 100% on me.
Oh yeah.
And here's the deal. This is the other part of this. Everybody else I'm leading, right, following followers is going to watch my response, right? So, and we're going to keep going here because my response now becomes what everybody is watching, right?
Yeah.
So how do I handle unpopular requests? Number two, I can't die on every hill.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, come on. So,
all right, seriously. So it's like you walk in, you're like, hey man, like, I'm really going to need you to change the color of that light. Oh my goodness. Really? Like we have worked on this, the branding and the palette for this, and you want me? I'm exaggerating here, right? But we die. Like you can't die on every hill. Because here's what happens: you just become like the voice of Charlie Brown's teacher.
Yeah.
Right. Every time your boss comes in, he goes, "Hey," you go, "Wah wah 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 wah." Pick what really matters to you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What really matters, and then. Then when your boss starts to see that it's not a hill, that every hill is not one you die on, they're going to start to pay attention to what matters to you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Everything can't be the most important thing. Right? Number three, sometimes it is just the way we've always done it.
Yeah, and this is hard.
Oh,
yeah.
Super hard for millennials.
Yeah.
Super hard for Gen Zers.
Yep.
Right. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. But there are ministry, context here is ministry distinctives.
Yep.
If you work in a nonprofit, they have distinctives. If you work at a business, they have distinctives.
Yep.
Right. There are just certain things that matter.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's okay to have those things. Right. So I'll use this as an example, by the way, another great session just for the future, succession planning. All right.
Oh, come on.
I'm not going to say the way that we did it was perfect, but I do think that it worked. It really worked well.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great to be able to share that. But, Kyle would come back and go, hey, so we do this, right? And I would say, yeah, we do this. And over time he got to learn, well, no, that is a distinctive of camp in Florida.
Yeah.
Right. Or of camp at Word of Life.
Yeah.
Right. Not every camp stops everything in the mornings after their meeting and says, we're going to have this thing called quiet time.
Yeah.
It's so important to us. We're going to program for it, but that's a distinctive, right?
Yeah.
And so that's another one. You can disagree privately, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we're like, oh, I don't really agree with that. You know what? Schedule a time to meet with your senior pastor. Schedule a time to meet with whoever your boss is. It's such a weird title. And do it privately. I have personally found that when I come in humility, right, and not like ready to fight everybody. Remember, I can't die on every hill.
Yeah.
That in general, I usually find a good response when I, in that private setting, get to share the rub with me.
And that's something that, and we've talked about this before, but you have really tried to make sure that we have a consistent time. You get together with myself, you get together with Justin, and we're even more intentional about it during camp.
Right.
Whereas sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's like, oh, we're doing so much, something has to go, we can't meet. No, it's so important too. And honestly, and here's what I'll say to your credit. And I would challenge you, listen, if you're a senior pastor out there listening, when I walk into Rich's office, the first thing out of his mouth is, hey, what do you want to talk about today? I know he's got an agenda. I know he has stuff.
Hey, what do you want to talk about today? Checking the list. That doesn't fit.
But honestly, it's an opportunity. He's scheduled the meeting. He wants to have it, but he wants to know what I want to talk about.
Right. Yeah.
And that's my time to go, hey, here's what I don't understand. Hey, and again, senior pastors, even you youth leaders, are you setting up a time to discuss with the people that are underneath you? Hey, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And there's sometimes that I brought up something and you'll go, this is really in fact, the other day
we had a conversation.
We talked about something.
Yeah.
And so it just was a good time. Guys, if you're not doing that with your leadership team, they don't know you're available.
Right.
And if they don't know you're available, you're not building a relationship. And so,
and I would say this too. One of the things that's been great for me, especially as we've been bringing younger guys in, right? Because succession, right? Yeah. Is, man, they do have a perspective that I want to hear.
Yeah.
Right. When you've been, I think that I'm trendy, right? I read, I listen to podcasts,
Yeah.
But man, I enjoy those conversations.
Yeah.
Like, help me understand. Like, I want to see it that way.
Yeah.
Last one here really is guys, and this is another one, but your leader gets to have an opinion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
It kind of dovetails a little bit with, sometimes it's just the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
But that would be more like organizational distinctives. This would really drill down to what really matters to your leader. Right. But he gets to have an opinion. I can't tell you how many conversations that I had with leaders about children's camp philosophy. That's kind of how I came up through Word of Life. I spent 3 years working on Word of Life Island, which is our teen camp.
Yep.
And then some people wouldn't look at it this way, but I always say I graduated to Word of Life Ranch to work with kids. Yeah. Well, I didn't know anything about kids.
Sure.
I didn't have them.
Yeah, not at that time, right?
Like, I played with them and gave them back to people, and it was awesome. And I fed them sugar.
Those days were so much easier.
I didn't know anything about that, but when I got there, I found out that there was a couple of people there that had been doing this for a really long time.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I wanted their opinion.
Yeah.
I actually sought their opinion out. I was 22 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm a fish out of water.
Sure.
I want to be effective. Okay, who's here that's already done this? Oh, Art Nazigan, you've already done this.
Yeah.
I want to have a conversation with him. He's home with the Lord now, but his influence in my life lives on. And so I think, there might be some people thinking, well, I don't know about being critiqued. I don't know about having my leader come in and go, hey, Kyle and I used to joke, but early on, like after the meetings were over, I would just be standing in the back. And he and Ethan Warren at the time, Ethan they'd be like, okay, like, is it good that he's back there? Is it bad that he's back there? And I think you guys began to learn, that I'm not coming with a sledgehammer.
Right.
No, yeah.
And if I am, I'm wrong. By the way, can I say, if you're a senior pastor and you're listening to the podcast and that's your mode of operandi, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to accomplish anything with that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do want to come and say, hey, listen, I noticed this.
Yeah.
I think it might have come across wrong. There might be a better way to do it.
Well, and I started to realize, and I said this to you the other day, and I would say this, guys, number one, if you are not sitting and observing the meetings that you're planning, if you're not sitting and observing, and I know some of you are convinced that you put together this big event and then you got to be the one that runs around all the time, or you have to be the one that's always preaching. No, you don't.
You're Martha.
No, you don't. I would encourage you 2 things. Number one, you don't have to be the guy, as Rich said, the bride at every funeral and the corpse at every wedding, right? Or the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral.
It can be that
important distinction.
But number one, you don't. Number two, observe it. But I would also encourage you to invite somebody else in leadership, because there's times that I'll say to Rich, you're observing this meeting from a completely different perspective, positionally in the meeting, as well as looking at it differently in the meeting. And so the wealth of information or ideas, I can't always just go, well, you're not on the leadership team. Well, you're not the one running this thing. No, I want it. And guess what? No, he and I wouldn't run everything the exact same way.
No.
Yeah.
But there's beauty in it. Rich, I did want to ask you a question. I know you're kind of going to get into this, but there are times that you ask me to make an unpopular call to kind of go back through, and I don't die on the hill.
Right.
And I go, okay, I'm gonna understand. Hey, this is how we have always done it. You know, when is it appropriate? Is it ever appropriate? Or how do I handle when I look at my team and my team's like, dude, really? That's a call. Is there ever a time that I go, hey guys, this is Rich's call, or do I own every single one of those?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me personally, I've never been like, well, actually, Don Locke called me.
Yeah,
this is what he wants.
Right.
I just personally feel like that as the leader, it's me that is stepping into that. Yeah. Now, I will say that sometimes it's a teaching opportunity. Yeah. Right. Because, well, every opportunity is a teaching opportunity.
Sure, absolutely.
But I think sometimes because we think our idea is always the best, you know, that we you know, but it doesn't align with the vision of Word of Life, its philosophy or whatever. Yeah. That it's a good opportunity to go back and say, well, personally, I would never go back and say, well, Don Locke said we can't do this. Yeah. I would never do that. That's just me personally. I want to own it as the leader, and I want to buffer my leaders from those things. I will say this, Kyle, I've felt like you've always done that. Now, here's the flip side. I've also said to you, this is my call. Let me get in front of your team. Yep. Yeah. Right? Yep. I don't think it's right to say, hey, Kyle, I don't want you to do this. Go tell everybody. Yeah. And you get to like get off scot-free kind of thing. Right. I mean, that's not leadership. Yeah. Right. I think a lot of guys do that. No, you're the senior pastor and you shut that program down. Yeah. Let's just go there. You guys go there in this podcast?
Oh yeah. Come on, we
go everywhere, man.
Then you owe it. I would say that's pretty strong, but I would say you owe it to your youth pastor, your children's worker to walk into their team and say, this is why we're not doing this anymore. Yeah. Right. This is why we're making this program change. Yeah. This is our new direction.
You can't just sit in an ivory tower in the back and.
No. So does that, I think.
No, absolutely. The other thing that as I started to think about this, and you address this a little bit, but I would love for you to go a little bit deeper. We've talked about this, the times that my leader, and most of the time that I'm experiencing this, that we've talked about this, are times that I'm up on stage and I say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And somebody else there goes, hey, I want to talk to you about that first. Instead of just doing what I've asked them to do. You feel very strongly about this. And I think it's
I do. And honestly, that kind of goes into this next section, right? So how am I going to respond to leadership now? Yeah. Right? We've talked about leadership gets to have an opinion. I can't die. Okay. I'm an immediate guy. Really? I know that. I don't want to make leadership ask twice. Right. Yeah. Right. And that goes back to the passage in Hebrews. I don't see where it's like, hey, if you don't like what they said, go ahead and just take a pause. Nope. Hey, I'm going to respond right away. Yeah. Right. Here's the bottom line. I'm choosing to work here. Yeah. Right. At the end of the day, right. You know, and you're choosing to serve at your church and you're choosing to serve in your ministry. I mean, if you got that big of a disagreement about it, there's probably more underlying issues there.
Oh yeah. Sure.
But for me personally, when I'm asked, I want to respond immediately. Yeah. And I want to follow through. Yeah. I get an email from my boss. You get an email. I want to email back and go, hey, this situation has been dealt with. All right. Yeah. I'll give you a funny. Can I use the illustration here? Yeah. So, our boss, he comes down and stays with us in the winter. And so I got the bright idea of putting him, in the villa, right? These really nice places we had to stay here right next to the pool. Well, what I didn't think about was our students go out there, late at night, stuff like that, turn on their UE boom, they're cranking their music, and so I get that email in the morning, actually it's a text, hey, last night it was kind of loud at the pool. Well, I deal with it. Yeah. At least I think I did, right? I fire off my email to the leadership team at the Bible Institute. Hey, we need this taken care of and it's done. Nope, it wasn't done, but I had already emailed Don back and said, hey, I took care of this. But that's how quickly I want to respond. I just want to step into that. Yeah. The other thing is the great thing about working with people, having longevity with people, is you get to know what matters to them. Yeah. Right. So now I get to be proactive for my leader. Yeah. Right. If I know that a certain thing bothers them, right, then I want to proactively work ahead of that. Okay. Let's just say maybe meeting structure. Let's just use that one. Yeah. Right. There's some guys that they want to know everything. Like, how come I didn't get invited to the planning center?
Yeah.
Right.
Have an agenda.
Right. Oh, wait, I don't want it digitally. Right. I want you to hand this to me when I walk in. Maybe I'm, stepping on, if you can't say amen, say ouch, or you can't say ouch, say amen, whatever. But I want to be proactive with that.
Right.
What matters to my leader?
Yeah.
Right. I don't want them to get blindsided ever by anything. Yeah. Right. And there's some guys, they won't step into that fray for them. Kyle steps into that for me. Right. But I'm also stepping into that for my boss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be surprised.
No. Yeah.
Right. And then the last one for me, and we talked about this before we started, but it's so important. I just want to say, you have to be praying for your leadership. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. There was a time in my life that I was consistently at odds with my leadership. It was miserable for me.
Yeah.
It goes back to the passage, right?
Yeah.
It's a disadvantage for you to not submit yourselves to authority. But it was a pride issue for me. It really was.
Sure.
I'm the new guy. I've got ideas. I want to push this thing. I'm ready to go. I've got experience. Yeah. It's not my first rodeo, right?
Because you worked at the ranch.
I got called up. It's like, come on up. You're in. But here's the other side of it. And I want to say this carefully. There was insecurity on the part of my bosses.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
When you're dealing with people that are shot out of a cannon every day, they're energetic, they're fairly good at what they do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It can be hard for them. Right. And especially in ministry, because guys are getting older, right? Succession, just plugging that. In case you guys want to do it. And younger guys are coming in, they got more energy, they got ideas. It can be really hard.
Yeah.
When you're the older guy.
Yeah.
Right. And insecurity sets in. And that's difficult. And so I just committed to every day praying that God would begin to work in both of our hearts, that he would shatter the pride in my life and shatter the insecurity. Listen, God resists the proud, gives grace to the humble, right? But insecurity is also sin, right? Yeah. Because then I'm not trusting that God has me where I'm supposed to be, regardless of my age. Yeah. And so, it can be a challenge, guys, but I have just personally found that if I'll just bathe that in prayer and expect God to work, right? Because God's not going to bless disunity. Yeah. That's the other part of this. Yeah. When there's friction, that's a whole nother conversation, but God's not going to bless disunity. Yeah. And so,
well, I think there's at least a little bit of like hope and glimmer as you talk about all this, because you say like, I dealt with this, and this, and now I'm here. But I feel like at all times, if not one of the five or all five, I'm dealing with one of them at any given time. Oh yeah. And I'm constantly either asking for forgiveness, bathing something in prayer. I feel like there's always, like, I think that's what I have to always remind myself is that I'm not going to get over this.
Oh, no.
There's you have to always work on it.
There's no like, and you're done.
Yeah.
You got it together.
It's like working out. Yeah. Like I was listening as I'm starting to work out some more. And as I was listening to a podcast, as they talked about it, he said, I always thought there was a weight that I needed to get to and I'd be done. But I realized that it's never going to be done. There's always something. And that's how I feel like this is in most things. Yeah. Most things are that way.
This is a lifelong journey. And honestly, like I don't think anything in here is like earth shattering. I don't think this podcast is going to go viral. Right. It could because of anything we share.
Never know.
Subscribe, share.
But but I do think I wish someone had shared this with me earlier.
Well, and you
figure it out a good point.
Yeah, I just.
So one of the things that we've talked about, and we talked about prior to this, is me letting you know when stuff's happening. Hey, boss, I want to just give you a heads up.
Right. Yeah. That's that proactive.
But do you think that can be more effective if? And we try to do this, so I'm tossing you a softball here, but we get together months ahead of time.
Correct.
Not at the last minute hey boss, just so you know, when you walk in this meeting, you're going to notice something's different. Yeah. So how much leeway do you think is better?
Well, I just think there needs to be conversation. Period. Okay, so I was on a church staff for 15 years as a worship pastor, and that was great for me. Right, working in a nonprofit like Word of Life ministry is great, but it's not church, right? Yeah, and so when you get and you've been involved and you're involved, Josh, and so it's so great to see that. I'm a little surprised by the lack of communication that takes place at the senior pastor level between the senior pastor and the youth pastor, right, or student pastor, and the child. I'm just a little surprised. They have their meeting scheduled.
Sure.
Right. But I don't know. And I'm probably, you guys are probably going to get blown up for this. I don't think there's a lot of intentionality there.
Nope.
I think most of the time, as long as nobody gets hurt on Wednesday night, and occasionally we baptize a couple kids in a pool, that everybody's pretty happy.
Yeah.
And what I would really love to see is a more senior pastors remembering what it was like when they first got started.
Yeah.
And really longing for that mentor relationship of somebody on purpose sitting down with them and going, hey, let me just tell you what God taught me.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the pitfalls.
Yep.
And I think if there was more of that taking place, the conversations about, hey, just so you know, this is coming, man, they would just be so natural.
Right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be, oh man, I got to make sure I tell my senior pastor, and he flips out when he walks in and stuff's not the same.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want you to ever think that.
No.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's not.
He's
you
going
don't
to
want
flip
that.
out.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Well, but that brings up another good thing. You don't only meet with us when you're correcting.
Right. Yeah.
And so some of you,
as soon as the appointment comes through,
you're like, oh.
Yeah, you dread it then. Yeah.
You know, I used to have, there were 3 bosses when I worked in another branch of Word of Life, and we always used to laugh at one boss you always thought you were in trouble with, and one boss you never realized you were in trouble until about halfway through the conversation. You're like, you've been so encouraging, but I realize I'm so
I'm in trouble.
You know?
the encouragement sandwich.
Right. So you know, the intentionality of connecting with your people.
Yes.
Yeah. Building an actual relationship with them.
And also, senior pastors, listen, you're going to replicate yourself in your next level of leadership.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And so if you're sitting there going like the thing that I appreciate is you're like, hey, are you meeting with your leadership team? Well, you're meeting with us. Mm-hmm. So I know the expectation of us then. Yeah. It's trickle down discipleship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, and I think what happens in a lot of places is, and it goes back to what you had said, we get really busy, right? Mm-hmm. And everything's happening. Like it's summer. So there's VBS, there's all these things happening in churches.
Yeah.
Oh man, what's the first thing to go? The staff meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, make sure you read the last email or look at your notes from the last meeting. We don't have time to get together this week. Whoa, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Like that's so important.
Yeah.
To be able to just remember why we're doing what we're doing, what it takes to make it happen, all those things. And so, one more verse.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So Hebrews.
You don't ask permission. You're good, man.
I'm messing with you guys, but Hebrews 13:7. Remember your leaders.
Yeah.
Right. Those who spoke to you the word of God, consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Okay. Man, I want to be the type of leader that people imitate their faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Amen.
And that's really what we're kind of talking about here today.
Yeah.
Is intentionally connecting with your staff.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, leader, you get to have an opinion.
Yeah.
It does. Hey, your church organization gets to have distinctives. Right? They do. But man, when you get that request for that meeting, go into that meeting humbly.
Yeah.
Right? Don't go in guns blazing. Take the meeting first of all.
Yeah.
And then go into it. And then make sure as the follower, right? Yeah. Everybody's following somebody, that you respond immediately when you're asked to do something.
Yeah.
Make sure you get back to people. Hey, I took care of this thing. And then proactively be scanning for, okay, what matters to my leader? Right?
Yeah.
Get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Hey, just so you know, I made this decision. I know it's something that is important to you. Right. Oh, really? Hey, that's fantastic, man. You want kudos?
Yeah.
With your boss?
Right.
Is that a thing still?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at least I know it is.
You want kudos with your boss? Be proactive. And then that last thing is just pray.
Yeah.
Pray, God, I want a great relationship.
Yeah.
With my leader.
Yeah.
With leadership. I want that. God, break down walls.
Yeah.
Of pride in my life.
Yeah.
And God, if they're insecure, break that wall down.
And here's the thing, God's going to answer that prayer.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've had to go through this and I've had to learn, I need to know my place. I need to grow and be a better follower.
Right.
And I just had an interaction with someone where we're doing a program and I had built all this stuff for it. And I said, okay, this is ready to go. And they said, hey, we're not going to use this. We're going to use this thing over here. We're using half of what you did, but we're using this over here. And they said, do you have anything to say? And I said, no. I'm good for now.
Okay.
And I gave myself 30 minutes and I went outside and I'd kind of rubbed my head and I was like, we're not using this product. Like I built this, like I put my time and effort into it. I was frustrated. And I wrote a list of my rebuttals, quote unquote, but like humbly.
Sure.
I wrote them down and I said, hey, I'd love to connect again when you have a chance. I met with the person again. I said, here's my thoughts. Here's all the technical terms I know to be able to say, hey, we can still use this. And the answer was still no.
Okay.
And I sat there and I was like, and I said, okay. And I just said, I trust you. And I went home to my wife and I said, I didn't have my opinion accepted today. And it's terrible.
It is.
And that was it.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But I'm going to tell you something right now, Josh. That attitude right there is Christ honoring.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the deal. God knows the desires of your heart. And if that was important to you then, right, he has not forgotten that it's important to you.
Yeah. Amen.
And God will honor you responding in that way.
Yeah.
And I hope maybe there's somebody in your age bracket right now that's listening is like, man, that's just me. And I didn't have that response. Hey, you know what? It's not too late to go back and fix it.
Yeah.
Like if you lost it and you blew up, you need to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't handle this right. And I want to be better.
Yeah.
So
no, and that's
well, and that brings up an important question because Rich, you and I have talked about this, that there are some guys of every age demographic that when you don't get your way, you just move on to the next job.
Yeah.
So how do you know, which I don't think there's a perfect answer, but how do you know when it's time to move on because you can't agree or when you stay because it's a refining process in your life?
Yeah, I think right now the tendency is just to be like, it's my way or the highway and take my ball and go home.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no perseverance.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a good biblical word. There's no push through. We were talking about this with the kids this week because it was Moses, right? And the 12 spies go in, there's giants in the land. Well, there's always giants.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's giants in every step, every walk of life.
Yeah.
And I want to be Joshua and Caleb. Right.
Amen.
Joshua and Caleb said the giants are too big to miss.
Yeah.
Like I want that. And too many times what happens is, and even in the context of this conversation, we're in the church, we're working alongside people, and all of a sudden everything becomes an issue. Everything's a giant. Or, is it really? No, not really. You're making it that way.
Yeah.
Right. God has something for you to learn in that situation.
Yep.
And what I've always thought is, if you keep leaving every time the same thing comes up. So if you're listening to this right now and you're like, man, this is my third church. Okay. Yeah. What happened in church 1?
Yeah.
Right. That made you leave.
Yeah.
All right. And chances are whatever that thing was probably something in church 2.
Yeah.
And now you're in church 3 and you're going, oh man, it's happening again. No, the problem is all you keep doing is changing your location.
Right. Yeah. You're taking one thing with you.
Yes, you haven't dealt with that thing yet. Right. And here's what I believe. I believe ministries are suffering. This is just my opinion.
Yeah.
Bought and paid for by Rich Andrews.
There you go. That's right.
Okay. It is that ministries suffer because instead of working through it, we decide to move. And moving's so easy.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just going to go to the next ministry. Yep. I'm going to go to how about we knuckle down and do the hard work of some heart change?
Yeah. Well,
does that answer?
Oh, no, that does. That's perfectly.
It reminds me, my youth pastor. So I don't know if you know, I work with my youth group at my church. Yeah. My youth pastor, Matt, he always says, if you meet a jerk in the morning, you met a jerk. If you meet jerks all day, you're the jerk. And so I always remember that.
Well.
Yeah. If at any time in the day I'm thinking, man, everyone's a jerk today, I'm like, I need to check myself. And that's the exact thing. It's like, if you keep having to jump to every church and you say, every church is full of jerks, you might be the jerk.
Now, I do want to say this. I do think sometimes, like, I've seen this observed. I won't use names or locations.
Sure.
But I've watched some youth guys be incredibly patient.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is their senior pastor or whoever it is, the executive pastor, whoever they report to, they're just not going to be the person that helps them flourish and grow. Right. Chances are, though, they were never led by somebody. Yeah. That person was never led by somebody who had the perspective of what we're talking about today.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to see you be successful. Right. And so because of that, I'm going to make the investment.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that my heart hurts a little bit. And I've actually counseled, even recently, counseled someone. I think it's time for you to move on. I think you have been faithful. I think you have been a good follower. I know you have diligently prayed for God to bring a restoration to this relationship.
Yeah.
And if you're asking my opinion, my counsel, as an observer, I would say, yes, God is moving you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. No, that's a hard conversation.
Because I'm not a quitter.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. We're like, I want to be all in, but man,
so
I got two more questions. Do you mind if I?
Yeah, I think we got. Yeah.
Okay.
You can,
so two more questions. So how do you as a leader, or how do you as a follower, figure out what are my distinctives and what are just my preferences?
Yeah. So
that's tough.
Yeah. For me personally, Kyle, just in handing off the baton of leadership to you for camp, it was actually a process that I had to work through.
Sure.
Right. We talked about we're going to have quiet time in the mornings. I think that's an organizational distinctive, right?
Yeah.
Kyle, I only want quiet time to be in the ESV. Right. That's a preference.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Only print quiet time, Kyle, the passage for quiet time in the ESV. I don't listen. Print the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good start.
Another one for me is like the invitation, right? That's an organizational distinctive for Word of Life.
We talked about this.
Okay.
Did we talk?
No, we talked about talking about the invitation.
About doing,
Yeah, maybe I don't want to get too far.
No. What's not about that?
But that's an organizational distinctive of Word of Life.
Something we do.
It's actually what we're known for.
Yeah.
Right. There aren't a lot of there aren't a lot of Christian organizations anymore that are doing evangelism, right? Or, like large, like big group event style evangelism, like Word Life does with Reverb, or at our camps, where there is a call forward, get out of your seat, put feet to your decision, decision that we're asking you to make. Yeah. That's a distinctive.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you and I have talked about that process, what that looks like. That's an organizational distinctive. I have a preference sometimes, right? And what that preference is of how that gets accomplished. But at the end of the day, I just want to see it accomplished. Right. Right? So I think that's what music, we joke all the time about music at camp.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't ever think, man, I really hope the youth leaders like this music.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not for them.
Yeah.
Right. No offense.
Yeah.
Right. I have a preference for music.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're both musical people. And so, we listen to a lot of music. If you looked at my phone, you'd be like, man, you got a lot of different stuff on there. I do.
Yeah.
But that's preference.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm really concerned about is, can people sing the songs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Is it singable? Is the theology good?
Yeah.
That would be an organizational distinctive.
Yeah.
Right. That we're making sure that those songs line up theologically with where we are. But the type of music, listen, you want to get up there with a banjo? I don't care. Get up there with a banjo.
That would slap. Let's get some banjos up there.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm down for that.
You want to say phrases like that'll slap?
But I think that answers the question, right?
Well,
and I think what happens is, as we get older, we start saying that our preferences are organizational distinctives.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're still just your preferences.
Yep.
Leaders, senior pastors, this is free. Don't make your personal preferences, right, organizational distinctives.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if your personal preferences happen to be rooted in the Word of God and they're, okay, let's have that conversation. But sometimes you're in your quest to make sure that things are happening the way you want to have them happen, you're pushing your preferences on your team, and that's not fair to them.
Yeah. Well, and something that Josh, I don't know if you know this, about 4 months ago up at the Camp Director Summit, 5 months ago, we sat down and Rich and Brian Baker, who's also been on the podcast, sat down with us as camp directors who have all been in our positions for a couple years now, some of us for many, and we just went back over the Word of Life camp distinctives.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was the first time that we've ever done that as camp directors.
Yeah.
And so then at the end of that meeting, Brian sent out an email, a follow-up email, which again, I would highly encourage you. Anytime you meet with your team, send up a follow-up email. Anytime you meet with your leadership, send up a follow-up email. If you've talked about anything, I have a notes portion on my phone that Rich knows that I put that stuff down so I can refer back to it, or he can ask me about the things that we talked about.
Yeah.
But Brian sent out an email and he said, okay, guys, I would like for you to evaluate how camp goes based on these distinctives.
Nice.
And so
Right.
Are we really running camp the way we say we run camp?
Yeah.
so now we're
It's a
going to
litmus
get
test.
together back in the fall, and we're
Yeah.
going to bring up these distinctives, and there may be things that we go, you know what, we need to change what we're doing or the way that we're doing it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now they're not these things that are just kind of out there.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
knows about them.
Right.
It's not a surprise.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's another thing, you know, sometimes people walk in, well, you know, actually, this is how we really want to do it. If you've ever had that say those words, then you haven't been leading well.
No.
Because if your team doesn't know that's important, doesn't know that's a
been
distinctive,
communicating.
there should be no surprise distinctives.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
My last question is this, because there are youth pastors, there are senior pastors, even parents that listen to this thing. What are the joys as the leader that you've been able to gain allowing those of us underneath you to do it a little different? And you go, you know what, it still might not be the way that, but how has that helped you grow personally? How has that helped you develop as a leader? You know, maybe with just what's one or two things that you have found the joy, because again, that passage says, let it be a joy to them, but also let it be a joy to you.
Yeah. That's such a good question, Kyle. I think for me, you know, now that I'm one of the older guys, it's hard to even think about it that way. I know I don't look that old.
Yeah,
but,
I won't say anything.
Yeah. One of the older guys is I really enjoy watching other people get it. Like I enjoy the conversations you have, but I know you're taking that information and passing it down to your team.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'll see that thing happen. I've never talked to that person, but they get it. And I go, man, that's awesome. Like I don't have to be that guy anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the other part for me is just coaching.
Yeah.
Like I have thoroughly enjoyed these last few years of, like, even last night, you know, we had a couple of younger guys that were speaking, right? And I made it a point to make sure I heard that person. They had interacted with me about their message.
Yep.
I love that. Like, and I want to be very purposeful with that. I went right down to Camp Crew and listened to another one of our younger guys speak. And afterwards had a great conversation with them. I am finding joy. Leaders, listen to me. Senior pastors, listen to me. There is joy in not having to be that person that's always up front, always doing that, and being the guy in the background, just coaching them.
Yeah.
You can find fulfillment in your ministry just doing that.
Yeah.
And so those two things for me, Kyle.
That's awesome.
It's got to be so hard to have been a successful quarterback, to hand off the ball.
Yeah.
And then not just, and to let that guy throw the way he wants to throw, but to also help him come alongside and say, hey, can I share with you some of the different things that I've had to learn and how to throw?
Right. I would just say this. I think in my situation, I don't know how it's been for everybody else. I really struggled almost like to the point of like depression the first couple of years because so much of my life had been wrapped up in being this camp director person. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just being very vulnerable.
Sure.
God allowed me during that time to realize that it wasn't about me, that I could find joy, you know, have real joy in watching other people be successful at the things that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And then watch the things that matter to me trickle down to other people. And I would just say it here. It's a God thing. I know it's not like that for everybody. And there might be people listening to this going, man, I wish my leader was like that. Man, I'm not a perfect leader. Kyle knows that. I'm not you know that, Josh.
Sure.
I'm not a perfect leader. This is God's grace in my life that's allowed me to be able to pivot from being that person that always had the mic in their hand and always was up front and always doing that, to getting as much joy as I did then, right? As I am. I didn't even think it was possible to sit back and watch a meeting and go, what? This is so awesome.
Yeah.
But it's been a total God thing.
That's
I
cool.
love that.
So,
So respond immediately, respond proactively, pray for your leaders. Hey guys, I would encourage you, set up a time. If you are not meeting with your senior pastor, your leadership, set up a time. Hey, if you are not meeting with the people below you, set up a time. You do have time with it. I would actually argue you don't have time not to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
But set it up. But I would even encourage you, even after you finish this podcast, take some time to stop your day.
Yeah.
Pray for your leadership. Pray for them. Pray for areas that you would say, hey, God, this is an area that I don't get along with them. And you pray that God would change your heart more than you pray that God changes what they're doing.
Yeah. Amen.
Pray for them. Pray for the people that are underneath you, following your leadership.
Well, you have to give grace to your leadership, and you will find that as you pray for them, you will learn to give them more grace. And that's something I've constantly had to learn, because I've worked under a lot of different leaders.
Yeah.
Every single one I've had to give grace to.
That's right.
And I've had to learn that. And I've failed at giving grace to every single one of them. And that's just part of that is the thing I find so much like hope in this whole conversation, is that I'm going to fail at probably all of those at some point again this year.
Right.
And I'm gonna have to relearn it every single time and keep growing in it. So
don't give up, man. It's a journey.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us once again. This is Stacking Chairs.
Well, let's plug quick.
I'm so sorry.
You almost, I didn't start the music because I knew you almost missed it.
So before, because you'll edit this out. So
no, I'll leave it in. You deserve it.
Hey guys, we want to tell you about a leadership conference coming up. It is called the Portion Conference.
Yes.
It is the date is October 17th. I believe it's only attend live, or is it also going to be online?
No, as of right now, it's a live conference.
Attend live, right October 17th, right here at Word of Life, Florida. We've got conference center rooms. If you need to bring your leadership team, in fact, I would ask you guys to pray about it as a leadership team, coming here and all being a part of it together. And even don't fly, drive, because that drive back after the conference can be such a pivotal time.
That car ride home.
Hey, let's talk about it. What did we learn? October 17th here, the Portion Conference. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And it's already online. If they look it up, they'll find it.
I'll put the link in all our socials. You'll find it in the description.
Here.
Yeah, it's right at the bottom right now, actually.
That's right.
If you're watching.
Perfect. All right, Josh. Take us out.
Music. There you go. This has been a fun episode. I've enjoyed this. This might be one of my new favorites, actually.
There we go.
Top 5.
There we go.
Yeah, this has been great.
All right, so now we have to bring him back to talk about invitations, and we got to bring him back to talk about
Let's do a couple more.
Let's do it.
Well, hey guys, check us out on Stacking Chairs Pod everywhere, as you already know. Stacking Chairs Pod at wol.org. Send us a message. Try not to be too mean. Be nice to us. Kyle, anything else?
Make sure that you like, subscribe, share this thing. Guys, I would strongly encourage you to get a part of our community that's out there. Josh, you put something out there?
Yes, the community is there. You can find the link in the description. It's already live. We had people already joining. Please join that community. Let's talk about what's going on in your ministries. And Kyle, most importantly, we need to remember to
stack those chairs.